Welcome to this preview video of the Sunday School lessons in the H2O series. This is the first of 4 videos that we'll be doing to talk about the lessons in the H2O series. Today we're talking about lesson number 1, Miracle Water, written by Carol Jarbo, and she's here with me today. And Carol, thank you for being one of our writers this year.
Well, thank you for asking me. I'm very pleased to do so.
As we began the series, we're trying to help our teachers with just some insights. Tell us a little bit about your preparation in writing this lesson and some tips that maybe they can use as they prepare themselves to teach it.
Well, the first thing I did, Warren, was read the scripture itself, and not just the verses that you gave me, but what previously in the chapter before and the chapter after had to say. I think you always need to read more than just what is there, those few little scriptures, to really understand the context and what's being taken. From that point, I read several different translations, and then I moved on to commentaries, and I wanted to see what some of the people that had more knowledge than I did said about this scripture and what kind of impact it had made on them. I actually read several blogs by well-known writers and had them tell me what they thought was going on in these scriptures. And then I took it back to the scripture itself and sat down and prayed over it, what God was trying to tell us through it.
Okay. Context is so important in all of these lessons, and we're going to see that as we go through each one of them. But how did the context here in John chapter 2 shape your lesson?
Well, one of the things that caught my attention right away is the fact that John talks about this being signs and wonders. And being that I have taught literature, one of the things that I like to teach my students is that there is so much more in something that is being written down sometimes than what is on the surface. Symbolism is something that is very, very strong. And especially when you see Jesus and the things that he says, he tends to talk a lot in symbolism, where he's giving an answer in the present, but it has such a much deeper meaning. And that's what I really had to go digging after, is what exactly was being said in the context of this. What was the point? And was it just that he was turning water into wine? Was this just some type of a miracle that John threw in there to let us know? Or was there something deeper there? And as I began to study into it, I found that it was much, much more deeper than even I had ever been taught.
Now, that's kind of my history with the passage itself. You know, in growing up, we always talked about, you know, the focus was on Jesus turned water into wine. It was his first miracle. And we always had these debates whether the wine was fermented or not, whether it had alcohol. I mean, you know, who cares? But, you know, I thought your lesson was such a fresh approach in the fact that it kind of, and of course the whole series always focused on water. Well, the water was significant, and I think you did a great job of bringing that out and helping us to focus on that rather than anything else that maybe from our history we bring to the passage.
Right, and I'm the same way you are. That was always the emphasis, and I always wondered myself as to why this was important. Was it just because it was his first miracle? What a very bland miracle to tell. And why did John go into so much detail about what it was and where it was? But again, if you go to the symbolism in it and you see what Jesus was really saying with the whole, it makes so much more sense. What a trumpet call it was, that who he was and what he was going to do, that we don't see until the very end on the cross, and then it all makes sense.
Yeah. John uses water in a variety of ways, and we're going to see that in all 4 lessons as we talk about them throughout his gospel. But how did John's use of water here shape your lesson? Because actually this involves Jesus turning, you know, something simple like water into wine. But how did that shape your lesson as John used water here?
Well, that's where you have to go to the Old Testament. You have to go back to the Old Testament to be able to understand what water was to the Jews. What purpose does it have? Why was it even there? What was the point of having water jars there at a wedding? What was the use of those? It wasn't like it was water they were drinking, because we know they didn't. So when you go into the water and you begin to see that it was there representing the old law, representing the purification rites, representing what was considered unclean at that period of time. And that has all stemmed from the beginning, where the law is set down. The first miracle that Moses performs for the Pharaoh is he turns water to blood, and that is death and judgment. But here Jesus takes water in that same ritual and that same purification, if you will, the trouble, the thing that the Jews had tried to use to bring righteousness to themselves. And he completely obliviates that out, and instead of blood, he brings his own blood and turns that into wine, which for the rest of the New Testament, he talks about that the wine is his blood. And he even makes it on the Last Supper. He makes that point. So we go from law and judgment to freedom and righteousness through Christ, just in that one act.
What do you want people to come away with from this lesson as we as teachers are focusing on kind of the takeaway? We want people to leave the room with kind of at least one thing on their mind from this lesson. What do you want people to walk away with as they teach the lesson?
If I could pick something for them to walk out of the room with, I would hope that everyone would walk out seeing that Jesus set down in that miracle a movie trailer, if you want to, a foreshadowing as to what he was there to do, and that he was there to fulfill the old law, that it was going to be his blood that was going to fill the law, that take away all of that from us and give us the opportunity to stand before a holy God clothed in his blood and in his righteousness. And that one moment where he fills those jars with those purification jars, and he changes it in that fell swoop to become the freedom and life that we can have in him. That's what I want people to see, is that that's what the point he was making.
Okay. Well, Carol, thanks for sharing these insights with us. And thank you for watching this video. This is the first of 4 as we're talking about lesson number 1, Miracle Water. And I hope this helps you in your preparation as you prepare this lesson to teach to your class. Thanks for watching.
Bye.